Right, 5 minutes in. Let's kick it off. Welcome everyone to the first online circle of the year. First of many. Plenty more to come. Who have we got today? Sterling co-host. We've got Roxana. Any more speakers still to bring up, or are we all good?
I'm fairly confident that Chair is going to be here as well. And Amelia, I believe, is out today. So still, we're going to have a fantastic conversation. Thanks for the start there, Logos. So let's go ahead and kick this off. I'll double check on Chair, but I do believe he is going to be here with us as well. But let's begin. Oh yeah, here he is, I think. Cool. Inviting him up. All right, we'll start with the disclaimers, my friends, as usual. Welcome to the new year. We are sliding gently into 2026. And without further ado, here's the disclaimers that are so very typical and natural of the space. So number one is any ideas, thoughts, philosophies, considerations that we have are a product of our own mind and are not affiliated with the Logos brand, identity, movement, or organization. Number two is this is a community space. Specifically, this is the Logos Circles space. So we do hope and even anticipate you guys to come up and have a chat with us. We do want to make sure this is open for the community and the community can discuss activities related to Logos, specifically with Logos Circles and our actions around the world and the development and the growth and the maturation of the Logos Circles grassroots activist initiative. Cool. The other thing is, if we do happen to talk about any kind of project, whether it's cryptocurrency, technology, or otherwise, please don't just YOLO into that project. This is not financial advice. Please use your own awareness, do your own due diligence, and consider the ramifications of engaging in a project at your own peril, right? Basic stuff, my friends. At least that's in my own head. Maybe not so basic to some people. So welcome, 2026 rolling around. We're going to get the show started as per usual with updates with regard to Circles, the current landscape, and the conditions for developing this movement. And then we're going to likely, I think the discussion is still very much open-ended to wherever you guys want to take it, but then we'll maybe get into concepts and topics around exit, which we talk about quite frequently. Also exit digitally as well as physically, right? Which means leveraging privacy-based technologies and communication tech to move outside the scope of the status quo to help develop these activist initiatives around the world. Cool. So I want to welcome Roxana and Chair to the stage. And I'm going to let whichever one of these guys want to go first to provide their updates, and we'll move the conversation from there. Again, if you guys ask to be invited up, I'll more than happy to help you. I think there are other Logos Circles leads in the space right now, and we're happy to have you up as well to discuss what you have going on and what your thoughts are in terms of your future orientation, especially near term with your local Circles initiative. Cool. Welcome, guys. Stage is yours.
Stage is mine. Happy New Year. Great to see everyone. Been a while. Um, been a few days, but it feels like it's been a whole year. Um, let's see. In terms of updates, usually January is fairly quiet, but I feel like this year January has been much more um, aggressive in terms of what's happening in London and throughout the UK. Um, let's see. So this Friday there's an event, Prospera, in London, which we're attending. It'll be quite interesting to have a few conversations with different people in the ecosystem around special economic zones, network states, parallel societies. Then there's a few other events around DeepIn and mostly cloud infrastructure in the in London. a few roundtables, a bigger event at the Ethereum Community Hub, at Encode Hub. So that's also something that we're going to attend. Good opportunity to network with developers and kind of find out what they're working on this year. Um, Anthropic launched an AI fellowship, which is open for 4 months. Deadline fast approaching. Really interesting to see that they have prioritized the UK and London compared to others. There's been multiple AI fellowships from OpenAI and a few of the other big guys, but those are mostly around the US or Silicon Valley. So it's great to see that some of the bigger AI players are prioritizing London as well. Um, we are expecting another London Logo Circle to take place towards the end of the month. Um, that is due to some travels in Asia that would kind of push us to move a bit the dates. So it would be end of January and end of February. And then starting March, we'll resume towards mid of the month, like we've done it before. We are continuing our work on digital ID. The sentiment right now in the UK is quite interesting. People are increasingly unhappy. They are highlighting a lot of the issues of past systems, and having public infrastructure dependent on a corporate service, which in this case would be digital ID. But I've seen, I've actually been in touch with someone who was a victim in the Horizon post office scandal. And so there's a lot of push to help more victims around the UK, and they're trying to do an event and talk about it more openly. So Horizon for us is one of the best examples of what can actually go wrong and the repercussions it has on the victims when an entire public infrastructure system like the post office depends on a faulty software and a faulty digital infrastructure provided um, by a corporation. So for us, that's something to look at, something to get a better understanding of, and see how we could integrate some of the learnings and some of the materials and some of the initiatives we're trying to develop in regards to digital ID and informing people of the downsides and trying to push a message of resistance out there. That's the update for London for now.
Nice. Glad to see you're going to hit the ground running for sure, because there's definitely a massive concern related to digital ID, and the direction you guys are going seems perfectly fit for that particular community. Logos had your hand up as well. You had a comment, maybe?
Logos did have their hand up. I just thought it'd be good to give people a bit of context about what the Verizon scandal was if they weren't aware. Correct me if I'm wrong, Roxana, because you might know more than me. Essentially, a bunch of people who used to run post offices in the UK were convicted, and some of them spent a good amount of time in jail. Some went bankrupt. I think some people even took their own lives because there was a fault with the government system, and it essentially indicated that these people had stolen money when they hadn't, and it kind of highlights how fallible these things can be, and when the government was able to wield them, yeah, it can destroy lives.
Yeah. So like you highlighted, the issue was that the people and the businesses that were running the post office, this was around the UK, They were using an accounting software that was approved and recognized by the government. And I believe that the accounting software was provided by Fujitsu at the time. And it had a bug. So based on based on this, it showed into the accounts that fraud had been committed because there were money missing or not corresponding. Um, and there were over, I think, at least 13 people committed suicide as a result of this because it was absolutely brutal. People went bankrupt. There, the shame of being categorized as someone who has stolen money from the post office. Some people, it completely broke their relationships and their family, ended up in divorce, ended up with nothing. And there were a few legal firms that jumped in to help the victims. However, the initial the initial money that the victims were able to receive were around, I think, not even a third of the estimation of the compensation, because at least 2/3 of that went to the legal firms. So as a result of that, the government had to step in and provide an additional kind of compensation scheme to the victims. And that's been an ongoing battle between the victims and the government now to ensure that all of them get compensation, the victims, their families, and everyone that was affected directly or indirectly because of this.
Thanks for providing some information on that scandal. I personally didn't really know much about it. I started looking into it a little bit as you guys were talking about it as well. That's just completely tragic, especially that they enacted prosecutions over over this thing without there being the evidence necessary to continue through with it, yet they did that anyway. This is like institutional failure on multiple levels. And so this is a really important and critical thing to talk about, I think. And I didn't know much about it, so I would imagine that there's a lot of people here who probably aren't too familiar with the Horizon scandal and issue. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate and clear example of what can go wrong when the government is wrapped into a commercial contract with a corporate entity. And so the reliance is on the technology, on the system provided to serve its purpose. A lot of the times, as we know, systems are not perfect, they're perfectible, but with corporations, a lot of them refuse to admit that they actually have an issue. And even fixing that takes a long time. So that's our argument. That is one of the arguments we brought in when we responded to the letter to the House of Lords on digital ID, was the fact that um, in the case of Horizon, we managed to estimate the compensation costs. So we were kind of asking the Treasury if they have estimated the compensation costs in the case of a major data leak of identity, of personal identifiable information in a digital identity system. So it was a very strong example of when things can go really wrong, they actually go tremendously wrong.
Just more reason, 100% more reason why we need logo circles initiatives, why we need more decentralized technology, why we need more exit from systems that don't have our best interests at heart. 100%. It's really a tragic thing that the evidence has to continue mounting to for people to come to terms with the reality of the situation and start thinking about viable alternative solutions like what we have here. So, yep, 100% something that we have to address, and I think is really important in terms of crafting an initiative for various kinds of circles where they can look at potential issues like this locally and then attempt to address them. Of course, every circle is going to have a different type of issue that they're going to address in their communities, but it's problems like this that are just so fundamental to the failure of the institutions that we're facing right now that solving them is just a key thing. Sweet. Okay, so we have Chair on the stage, and then M as well with updates, and also starting to think about what the very next circles meetups look like, because I'm not sure that everyone has had one since the holidays. Chair, welcome.
Hi, hello. That sounds like some real witchcraft and wizardry tomfoolery. And I also have not heard of that. 13, what an auspicious number. 13 suicide. I can't think of any story that's similar to that one. Very interesting. I will be looking into that later. The Los Angeles Circle next session is next week. 1 week from today, I believe. It is a work group session. If you have been attending Los Angeles sessions, you are very well aware. If not, I encourage you to find the Luma and register. The work group session has one objective and one objective only, and that is to take the ZK Nextdoor app idea that we have from phase 2 to phase 3, or at least have it conclude phase 2 with all of the functionality that we need defined so that it can enter phase 3, so it can slide gently into phase 3, which is the development phase. I am very motivated to get this done. I might even jump the gun beforehand or before the meeting and start getting some of the work done for the defining of features, because I very much want to be done with that by the end of the meeting. That is the next meeting. Following that, we will have another more networky / introductory style session, which we have been doing every month since August, I believe, and usually in downtown LA. And if you have an argument for why it should be at a location other than downtown LA, then you can talk to my friend Francisco about it. But it is going to be in downtown LA, probably. Okay, there was something else. Oh, if some intrepid community member who frequents these spaces it could keep track of the topics that we cover, just bullet points, and then reply to the pinned tweet, it would help a lot. Because we do jump around from here to there, but like the big notes, I need like 13 suicides due to a postal service corporate mess up. How did I not hear about this? So on and so forth. London updates, LA updates, and now whatever happens next. Okay, I think you understand. Please, anyone who has the capacity to do so and seeks to be recognized for doing a good job, please do that. Otherwise, the next one is the 12th. I will be tweeting the Luma out. It's in the where you can find the Lumas for all of these circles. Also, probably around the 24th, 25th, last week of January is when that networking event will be. I'm excited to conquer new grounds. We have been on the west side, of course, downtown. We even annexed Claremont, and looking to penetrate now into San Diego, or even further east, Riverside, Redlands, deep on the 10 East. Salton Sea? I don't know. I don't know if we'll have the time. All right, I cede my time. Thank you.
Nice, Chair. Thanks for the update. Looking forward to hear more about how it goes with the upcoming Circles event there in LA. Good stuff. Sweet. We also have M on stage. And M, you have to remind me, you run the Barcelona one, right? The Barcelona Circle, is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I organized the one from Barcelona. Right now, I'm planning to do so at the end of the month because early January is not like that active here in Barcelona. There's a lot of local festivities, and also I would say that the first half it's like nobody's paying attention to events because they haven't paid the payrolls. most of that people are working. So I'm planning to do it in the second half of January.
Perfect. That works. Just keep us up to speed, of course, on what you have going on. Everyone's going to be keen to listen to getting more info on the winnable issue. I think we talked a little bit about that in the past, but then having updates. Give me a second here. Somebody's requesting to come up. Oh, Girl. Okay, absolutely. Love to have an update from Girl as well. Girl, when you get on the stage, I think it's still booting you up. By all means, feel free to you briefly introduce yourself again for anyone new here if you want, and then give us the lowdown. And remind me, I'm working on my memory here. I think yours is the Porto.
Yeah, that's right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. So I come in a different way. We're having our first Porto Circle at the end of the month, which I'm really excited about. And obviously, I've come with a winnable issue already. So Chair, I just want to say thank you so much for the framework you put together, and I'm sitting on my hands until the meetups. Let's have a habit of getting overexcited. So I'm excited to be filling in the frameworks for you, taking it through all the stages.
I'm
Yeah.
excited that you're excited. There's some feedback that I need to get to. I think from
Okay.
the ecosystem extraordinaire developer X1000. He left some feedback that I haven't gotten to yet, but either way, I'm very excited that you're excited. I think this is the
Yes,
first
I
excitement
am.
that I've heard. So thank you. And there it might be updated or changed just a little bit, but I think the 4 stages at least will remain. So awesome! I'm excited that you're excited.
No, I am. And so that's what I mean. I'm literally having to sit on my hands because I'm trying to, obviously with the community in Porto, it's not just about me cracking on with it. But Amelia and Lou are at a developer meeting in Lisbon tonight, and it's with the same guys that have a space that we're going to be using to host the meetings in Porto. So they're like a real developer hub. So and I think they're going to be involved in Parallel Society. So it's really nice that we're able to create, develop even greater, deeper links with that. I had a meeting with Amelia, with Glitch Armor and Privacy Church, and they're going to feature the community in their publications, which is super exciting. And we've got Mario, the tech host, as well, because I'm not that way. I'm an activist and more on that sort of side of it, not on the tech side. I'm still amazed I was even able to put together a tech proposal for you. But he's coming on, so I think that's going to add some real weight to our Porto Circle and give us some real proper legitimacy. So I'm really excited. The Glitch Armor guys, since then we had such a successful meeting, and the head honcho there then got in touch with me, and she's put me in touch with someone that's worked within the community of survivor communities, and is looking to actually help. So when we have peer-to-peer mentoring, and we'll actually offer her services to help survivors regain themselves. So it's really good. Yeah, that's us in Porto. Buon anno.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Girl. So I think what I want to do now too, I think everyone has went, and maybe we're going to move on to the discussion segment of the space. But I think it's important that we give some context to people. I see some new faces in the space, and they may not be fully familiar what circles are. And since we're starting the new year, providing some groundwork for understanding what we're doing here is probably really important. So maybe we take just a few minutes to discuss this. I'll start with giving my take. So for you guys who are new, Logos Circles is an initiative by Logos to activate different kinds of local communities. It's to build a new kind of civic life within these local communities to solve a particular issue. And we just refer to this, I know the terminology, we can probably think of better terms, but it's a winnable issue. So looking at a local community, if there's an issue that you recognize as part of that community that can be remedied and there's some action you can take towards solving it, that is the overarching purpose of these circles. But here's the key thing with these. The reason why we're doing this is because we have an understanding, and I think everyone here shares this valuation, that the institutions that are around us in our traditional societies are largely failing or have failed us in a variety of ways. This is all the way from governments to corporations. Any of these megalithic type of entities tend to serve their own purposes rather than the people. So it's our modus operandi, or it's our impetus to take back this power and bring agency back to the individuals within the context of their communities to remedy these kind of institutional failures. And these failures come, by the way, in a bunch of different forms in each different community. In some place it could be an environmental concern like an open air landfill. It could be the case like in Roxana's case where there's a digital ID. Well, there's a digital ID policy or some set of laws that the government's attempting to implement, something of that nature, that maybe you want to try to push back against or rectify that on the local level. Maybe it's an issue where there's an educational institution that doesn't have the tools that they need to empower their students and to provide them with with a better situation for being able to learn and gain access to education. So accessibility to different kinds of educational materials is really important. There's a lot. So this is the key. Each community is different, so they have different needs. And one of the things that we also say that is very important, and it really behooves us to talk about this a lot. We're not trying to come into these communities as some top-down organization and tell them what to do or what problem to solve. Instead, we're really trying to empower those local communities with leaders in those local communities to work together with that community to solve a problem. And we're here bringing the technology, the technological stack and component to assist where necessary, to bring activist infrastructure and activist power to those communities so that we can assist them into solving these problems. So we're here to give a helping hand. We're not here to tell you what to do or how to do it. It's about joining together to create a kind of change. So a term for this that we can use or that we have used to describe what's happening, we're really creating a parallel space, a parallel ecosystem, or even a parallel society that has its own ability to activate towards some type of end goal in those communities. And this model, at least in my mind, is taken from what, and I won't go through the whole story here. I've done it a lot. We can chat about it. But in the Czech Republic, at the time Czechoslovakia, went through a period where a group of activists created a parallel polis, right, which is a parallel space, which they referred to as an independent culture or a second culture, an independent society where individuals could come together and they could resist peacefully the communist regime at the time. And they did this by handing out what they called Samizdat. Samizdat was effectively previously censored reading materials that they republished as zines and spread around to the people in the parallel polis so they could get access to the material that the communist regime was censoring. Of course, this ended with the Velvet Revolution, or it crescendoed in the Velvet Revolution, which was a peaceful abdication of the controlling communist regime at the time. So this is just one example. This doesn't mean this is how all these communities have to conclude. It could, this is just me talking from personal opinion and thought that this could happen potentially again in the future. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're spurring this forward. And by the way, we would never say that this movement is to enact any kind of violence or to do anything illegal. What it is about is taking back agency within the context of these communities and using our will as a community to enact peaceable change. I like Gandhi's concept of satyagraha. So satyagraha just means peace force, and having a peace force is a community that's willing to stand up to injustices in whatever form they take, and then to be able to rectify those injustices without hurting anybody in the process. And I think that is a powerful tool. It's a powerful insight, and we know that it has historical efficacy, right? It worked in the past, so there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do this again. So this is the purpose of logo circles, at least in my words and from my perspective, it's about creating change. It's about enlivening communities, bringing back agency, and also having a form of activism embedded in it as well. So if I missed anything, guys, Roxana Chair, speakers, Girl M, please let me know. But I was hoping for anybody who's new, this is the new part of the year. Revisiting this material from time to time is important because I think there are some people who likely join in the space and we're talking about the circles, and for some folks it's probably completely out of context. So if you're here and you're new, hopefully this gives you the relevant context to understand what we're doing. And we're not just doing this because we can, it's because we're all very passionate about creating this change and bringing that agency back to the communities, because we live in a world that sometimes feels like it's crumbling all around us. And so having some say in how it pans out is really vital, not only for our own mental health, but also for the sake of posterity, right? And for the sake of the future, being able to give a place that provides our communities with meaning, right? And our children with meaning as we move forward is just so important. So anyway, you guys are welcome to comment on this as well, but I just wanted to break it down again.
I think circles are interesting to me. Oh no, wait. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
You're good, brother.
I think the original, I don't know, like for whatever, for unknown reasons, or for reasons that I continue to study, I was sort of aware of I became aware early on in life of the broken nature of human governance and interaction. And I'll save those early stories for other spaces. But I had always, or for a long time, it was within my awareness that there was that something was askew and certainly inefficient in the way that humans interacted and dealt with each other on a day-to-day basis. Certainly, the power structures that we are loyal to and beholden to. So when Ethereum, the concept, was laid out for me, and as I dove into it, it became a beacon of like the only realistic possibility of transforming that paradigm or the paradigm into something that is more equitable for everyone. And things happened throughout the development of Ethereum, as things do. I think one of the biggest not separations, but you can watch something developing and you can cheer on from the sidelines, quote unquote, or be as involved in it as possible. But there's still a separation with everything that's going on in Ethereum and that has gone on in Ethereum and other chains and networks. How do you translate that from the virtual to the physical day-to-day reality within your own community? Ethereum has done an okay. Actually, I would say Ethereum has done a very poor job in terms of actually translating that, like the the tech that exists to the application within the day-to-day world of people and changing their lives, and not just people who are proficient in manipulating DeFi or understanding yield and economics and finances and how to play the game. I won't go into a full breakdown of Logos technology right now, but without the effort of what circles are doing and other initiatives in bringing the tech to the local to the real world, to the physical space, and to local communities first, even before DevNet and TestNet of Logos Core and the Logos network are live. Because that's what it really, in my opinion, or I guess I agree, that that's what it's going to require, or that's what it requires in order for this stuff to manifest positive change in physical reality for not just the people who are involved, but those in the circles around us. And that's why circles are aptly named, but also that's my context for what's happening here in that. Yes, the tech exists, and all sorts of tech has existed for a long time. You would be amazed. But making it available to people to make their and others' IRL lives better, more efficient, less dependent on less than honest systems. That's what we're doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said, Chair. I'll add to it. So thinking about this too, the situation that we're in, and this is in the context of a lot of communities, we have a very classic situation of a prisoner's dilemma in a lot of different communities. And so instead of wanting to cooperate, if we don't create the infrastructure for it, which is what circles are, people have a tendency to uh, not form coalitions and try to work together because some of those people will betray the other, or they'll choose non cooperation through playing within the context of the legacy is also trying to revitalize that. And by revitalizing that, we start to align the incentives for people within these communities to begin working together and cooperating rather than defecting and going into the traditional system. So it's a way to break the prisoner's dilemma that a lot of people in these communities seem to be embroiled in. It's almost like the if I can't beat them, join them kind of mentality, right? You can't beat the system, right? Then join in and play its game. This is the antithesis of that, right? This is what's diametrically opposite. Joining into a parallel society, working together with people cooperatively to solve problems is key. And that's also what Chair is getting at from my perspective. And I absolutely adore this effort overall because of how it invigorates us to want to create necessary change and to push that change forward. But here's the thing, it does require effort, it does require energy, and it requires the people involved to have that type of motivation, right? And to help rally people around a given cause. And that does require a leadership type of effort. Someone with the charisma and the acumen and the understanding that a problem exists, people care about it, but it's like channeling that energy, then channeling that community energy towards solving the problem, right?
This reminds me of a very interesting um, initiative called the Whole Earth Catalog. I think I shared a few pages with you, Sterling. Um, it's a it's an amazing catalog that ran until 1971, I believe. It was a physical catalog, and it influenced counterculture. It influenced the whole do-it-yourself ethos. It was a presentation of tools, of books, of um, cyber culture and tech pioneering at the time. Um, and it even talked about some stuff that today you'd never see in a magazine or a catalog. And they were, um, I think Steve Jobs called it the Google in paperback form, and it inspired Wired. It inspired The Well. which was sort of a continuation of the Earth Catalog in digital form, and contributed to the birth of the Electronic Foundation, EFF, and all the virtual subcultures that we have today.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the Whole Earth Catalog, Roxanne. I think there's a lot of people too who are probably not as familiar with it, because it kind of takes an obscure spot in history, where it has largely been forgotten. But you're 100% right. The Whole Earth Catalog was really a precursor to the internet in a lot of ways, because it was filled with like DIY hacks, with different types of construction projects on how to develop like regenerative and sustainable homes, had different types of ideas on how to live more freely. It really had just a complete beautiful hodgepodge of different types of ideas. And I remember, so the creator, by the way, his name is Stuart Brand, and he has one of my favorite quotes. And the quote goes something like this: we are as gods, might as well get good at it. Because one of the visions that Brand had with the Whole Earth Catalog is that we're like developing this culture, these alternative cultures and these alternative communities, to create a better world of tomorrow. And he was very much on the forefront of technological evolution. And so 100%, you're right. This is why the Wired and a bunch of different people after the fact were influenced by Stuart Brand and the Whole Earth Catalog. I've actually started writing a little bit about some of the work in the Whole Earth Catalog on some of my personal stuff lately, and I recommend everybody look into it. We need to pick up that original copy I think you showed me from eBay.
I got it, and I think once our storage solution is up and running, I'm very tempted to do a digitization version of it, similar to what the Internet Archive is doing with some of the rare books, because it's very hard to find it. And I mean, this one that I found was quite good in terms of the it wasn't that damaged. The pages were not ripped apart. I've seen some really bad copies, but this one was a really good one. And it's easier to do it as a project. Maybe it's going to be a cool project for some London Logo Circle members to help out with at some point.
And what was so cool about the Whole Earth Catalog is just the fact that the info, it contains specifically the kind of information that people building alternative or parallel communities wanted to see, or those people looking for kind of unorthodox ways to go about their lives. Whereas it really is nostalgic in a lot of ways, and there's a yearning for getting back to that type of mindset, because a lot of what we're dealing with on the internet now, right, is just like algorithmic control of the population, the hitting of dopaminergic spikes to keep people entranced to a certain kind of stimuli online. And so there's something about harkening back to things like the Whole Earth Catalog that also remind us that there is a spirit of DIY, of setting up your own community space, of building your own tools and gadgetry for your specified purposes, be it living freely or just having a sustainable type of household. And so now you have to really go out of your way to search for that stuff. And then there are still those groups of people who are completely asleep to the larger narrative around these alternative communities that are unfolding in spaces like ours and in some corners of Web3. Of course, this is not to blackpill anybody. Obviously, we're here to help facilitate this movement and regrow kind of the new novel Whole Earth Catalog type of movement in the form of circles, if you will. And I really like that. And I think there's going to be more and more people who appreciate it, especially as some more of the inauthenticity and the synthetic nature of the system becomes more perverse over time. There's just more people who are going to see that there are these shimmering spots on the web, and there's groups of people who want to push back and who want to build their own kind of communities from the ground up in a fresh way that is not contaminated by the traditional structures. Roxana.
Yeah, I think one of the best features of projects like the Whole Earth Catalog and many others is just it is designed as a living document essentially. So everyone can contribute. If they're very good at something, they can contribute to the, let's say, to this kind of wiki, so that other people can learn. And to some extent, you can see that today in, for example, teenagers spend a lot of time on TikTok, but they do learn a lot of handicrafts. They can learn a lot of cooking recipes. They can learn things from people that are not famous. They're not. They're just regular people that have a very specific passion for something, and they love producing content that is very niche. So to some extent, we see that kind of niche influence today as well. The only problem we have today is that there's too much information, that one interest is sort of becoming a profile of it's sort of, it's kind of, the interest you have is used against you because you're being profiled by the algorithms behind it, right? So it's not like, oh, I just want to read a book because I'm curious. The algorithm picks up that you're interested in a book and it will keep sending you the same kind of books. So it's sort of, it doesn't broaden your perspectives. It kind of has the opposite effect, because it doesn't let you get out of the cluster you're positioned in and explore different things, and have this multitude of knowledge bases that you can tap into.
Yeah, 100% agree. Man, yeah, I think we could go on and talk quite a bit about this perspective because here's the thing. I think it fits so nicely into circles because what could extend from circles, right? Solving winnable issues, building communities. There's obviously an element of skill sharing, of mutual aid, of figuring out different ways of living together that are very reminiscent of the Whole Earth Catalog and the way that it was developed for our alternative lifestyles. So it definitely is a nice fit. There's also a community that I'm reminded of when we discuss this. And my wife and I spent some time at this community. So in New Mexico, there is a so-called Earthship community. It's mostly a completely off the grid community, just in this beautiful high desertous mountain, right? This plateau in New Mexico that overlooks these mountains. There's these Earthships that are completely disconnected from the grid. I think the only thing they had that was attached to the grid was internet. Other than that, these houses, which are really cool because they're all made from regenerative renewables, and they are self-sustaining in terms of their ability to gather energy from the atmosphere. And the guy who actually created this movement, Michael Reynolds, I think is his name. There's an institute there called the Biotecture Institute, and he's written a bunch of books on this. But he was a real unorthodox architect, and he actually, I think, got his license yanked at one time for trying to teach people how to go off the grid, how to use renewables. And the state and the system did not like that very much because they want people to stay on the grid rather than exit, right? This gets into the concept of being able to exit systems. You have to have this kind of unorthodox apostate knowledge. This is what this whole Earth catalog discussion is about, I think. Gaining the knowledge and the information to exit, to join communities that is diametrically opposed to these traditional systems that want to spoon feed us all of the things that we need to be able to live. But really, I'm reminded of the Matrix. Like, right in the Matrix, when Neo wakes up, he was plugged into a battery effectively and being fed all of this, all of these nutrients. So the nutrients of society really is a kind of anti-nutrient, right? It's just all of this rehashed garbage that people are just constantly consuming that doesn't actually add value to their lives. But what this movement teaches people is how to be self-sustainable, and also to understand that there are other ways to live, there are other ways to connect with people, there are other ways to escape the modern atrocities of society and live more freely. And it's not only that, if we're able to construct this and to build this as we move forward and to revitalize this ethos, I think at the end of the day, what we're ultimately creating is a new kind of world. And I do think the positivity of this is there are more people waking up to this aspect of the movement. And by the way, I'm going to take the time to reset the chat real quick, guys. So we are 5 minutes till we can potentially go for another 20 to 30 minutes. We do, again, really want to have you guys involved in the conversation. This is a Logo Circle space where we're talking about building community efforts to solve winnable issues. And at the beginning of the space, we had people provide some information, especially the Circles leads, on how their circles in their local areas are going. This is a movement that's active right now that we're helping to grow and to develop. And there's just a ton of people who have gained interest in this movement because they want to be reconnected to their communities and they want to solve local problems. So I want to thank you for being here. We can potentially go another 20 to 30 minutes. We're talking about ideas that usually we always talk about ideas that circle circles, right? That are in the same territory or in the same space. And by the way, Logos, aside from being focused on these activist movements, also has a decentralized technology stack that can potentially empower these movements with privacy-centric communication, with decentralized governance applications, with decentralized data storage. It's all there. So we have the tools and the tech, which also, with, by the way, Roxana, what Whole Earth Catalog was really about. We have those tools and technologies to help give people a way to realize their vision within these communities and to solve the problems that they're trying to solve. So you guys are welcome to come up and chat with us. We don't bite, at least not too hard. I don't think we're going to draw blood, right? So go ahead and come up, have a chat with us. If you're interested in joining these circles, we will give you, we have plenty of information. We have documentation. We have the people power to help you out in your communities. And listen, we even have people in places like Africa, in Latin America, and places that really could use our help, use our communities. And we're not trying to do this from like a technocratic perspective and come in top down and tell them what they need to build. No, we want to give people the power to solve the problems that they see as problems in their local communities. We're here to help. We're here to offer a lending hand, and we want to help these folks out. It's not, oh, we're coming in, we bought this island, it's going to be a bunch of billionaires hobnobbing around with each other. No, that's not the way. This is a community effort, and we want to be part of that community, and we want to help you in the ways that we can help you. So we're here to listen. I think listening is an important skill that is in a major disuse in the modern time. So we're really trying to revivify the idea of having a listening society. Actually, that was the other book I think that Freenocht wrote, right? The Listening Society, trying to rebuild the listening society.
I think one interesting point is all of these counterculture, micro community-based knowledge wikis that we see around the world, books, initiatives, sort of communities forming and maintaining. This is, I feel I'm not sure I want to bring this up specifically because we were having a really good conversation, but a lot of the times when you have an unstable um, um, an unstable state, really, where there's things happening. It can be a transition between types of governance in the country. It can be complete takeovers of other countries. It can be invasions, etc. A lot of the times, um, it is absolutely unjustified, but this happens everywhere. And I've seen it in so many countries, and coming from a communist country as well. They attack um, the hubs that retain the knowledge, the hubs that retain the history, the hubs that retain the proof that those communities, those cultures existed. For example, in 1989 in communist Romania, um, there was an attack on the National Library in Bucharest that held very old manuscripts and very old works, part of the Romanian history, part of the history of the territories before Romania became a country. So you're looking at hundreds of years of history completely destroyed, unable to be preserved in any way, because you can't have multiple copies of a culture's history and of a culture's habits and practices and rituals. Um, or some of the things that are created, they are created even if they're in written form. It's a limited, it's a limited amount of copies that exist in the world. So for me, it's very interesting to find ways in which um, communities around the world can come together and preserve that kind of culture, preserve the history of the culture per se, and not necessarily the culture itself, but preserve the history of when, how it started, practices, the rituals and everything, so that at one point in time, if um, a new community forms and they want to draw inspiration or they want to continue, there would be absolutely no reason for someone else to pick it up and continue that kind of tradition. Because I think tradition is very much tied right now, the way we see it, it's tied to um, political context, it's tied to nation states, it's tied to regions. Whereas there could be, I don't know, we have in Romania, we have a very beautiful dance that we do over the holidays, and it's actually very hard, and only the men can dance it because it's really intense on your body and your legs. Um, and it's slowly dying. Yeah, it's a ritual that is slowly dying, and yet for some reason, it's being picked up in a. I think it's being picked up in a region in Africa. So it can still be carried on, it can still be continued without having to belong to that specific region or that specific physical space, because we are evolving. The way we interact is evolving. We're becoming more digital, we're becoming more global. Um, and we are breaking away from those physical barriers that nation states pose on us.
Yeah, well said, Roxana. You touched on a lot of really important topics there. So the thing that I think about right away is where I think there's a great effort that at least started with the development and the subsequent maturation of even Web3 and crypto. But of course, the push toward greater decentralization is also a push toward bringing our cultural experiences back down to a manageable group of people, right? Because when a culture becomes so large, when a community becomes so large, it becomes monocultural, right? This is what we have with the Westphalian nation state. They're monocultures that really devour a lot of aspects of different types of indigenous cultural artifacts that previously existed in those communities. So even in the United States, like tribal communities and Native American communities, those have largely been eaten from the inside out in the context of the US. But this isn't this the blame isn't squarely to lay at the feet of any individual person. Rather, it's this idea that we have to have these massive territorial monopolistic entities to control these kind of communities. But one thing that we have learned over time, and this is through various kinds of psychological and social psychological research, but we have an understanding that we're able to maintain our cultural traditions and to develop those cultural traditions when the communities are relatively smaller and flattened. This is also associated with the so-called Dunbar's number, where the cognitive load in terms of relationships that we can manage are around 150. I've also been reading a book lately that I'm really fond of. It's a philosophical text. It's pretty dense, called Process and Event by Alexander Bard. But one of the cases that they make in the book is that when you have these smaller communities and you kind of stay aligned with Dunbar's number, and there's a lot of different Dunbar's number, quote unquote, it goes anywhere from 150 by some accounts to around 1,500. But it goes from the like the community to the tribe, and there's these different categories or delineations. But one of the things that they said is in these smaller communities, the relationships are so strong and so cohesive that you don't even need a police force in these communities because there's a level of trust. It's like high trust societies that are developed in these smaller communities. And I know a lot of people will scoff at this immediately when they hear it, because I think a lot of people, when they think of this, they think of Thomas Hobbes, right? The idea that the state of nature is naturally nasty, brutish, and short, right? And there's a lot of propaganda around this idea that if you have these communities that are more free, that are more tribalistic, then a kind of savagery and brutality tends to dominate those communities. But a lot of the research and the scholarship that has come out recently has actually suggested quite the opposite, that some of these communities can have a tendency to be more cooperative, to be more mutualistic, to share more of their ideas. And so, and just to cite some of this material, I recommend reading James C. Scott's book. So he's actually got a few books, but The Art of Not Being Governed, where he analyzes Southeastern Asia, is a really good book. Uh, Also, Against the Grain is probably one of the more characteristic books where he actually uncovers the nature of the state apparatus and how it formed after the agricultural revolution. And I won't go over it. There's a lot in his book, but the primary thesis is that when communities started to form in the Fertile Crescent, what ended up happening was they became grain-based societies, right? Growing things like lentils and rice, etc. And what this did was create the necessary and sufficient conditions for the state to form, right? Because the state, first and foremost, wants to kind of control those resources. So this is why accounting was originally invented. It was invented as a result of the state apparatus so that the god kings in those communities could take stock and account of the grains, you see, that were being harvested. And if they could keep stock of those, they could then decide how much that each of the farmer would have to give them in the form of taxes, which is just expropriation, right? So all of the society and the historical situation that we find ourselves in is a continuation of James C. Scott's story that he told in Against the Grain. And what we're trying to do, I think, is try to recreate some of the earlier preconditions that existed before state formation, right? And especially before the Westphalian state, which is smaller communities. They come together, they have closer connections, they have more stronger ties to the land, and they're not engaging in ecocide. They're not engaging in destruction of themselves through the process of different kinds of abuse, right? And I'm not just talking about like interpersonal or domestic abuse, which does happen, but I'm talking more about the traumas that we have to endure as human beings are largely the result of our current cultural context. Anyway, this is something I could rant on about a long time. I highly recommend for anybody who hasn't read Against the Grain to read James C. Scott's book if you want to really understand where our civilizations come from and how they arose, and then you'll understand how they augmented themselves sociologically and culturally over time. And a lot of it is about uh, like internal defensiveness against predatory systems, right? Or at least ways to people oftentimes delude themselves in terms of the nature of the society that we're living in. But I'm here to tell you that I don't think we have to live in those societies. And for me, this is what Logos Circles is about. This is what this movement is about building a new kind of future, a new kind of community ethic and ethos that really is representative of what Terence McKenna called an archaic revival.
As you mentioned the taxing of the goods in the feudal system via the harvests, reminded me of the conversation that Jared Hope had with Michelle Bowens on the Logos podcast last year. You can find that podcast at Press, as in Press on Nails, press.logos.co, along with every other interesting interview and article and piece of material for you to consume. Press.logos.co. But those topics were broached a few times, and I replayed a few of those podcasts over the holiday, and it slammed me. Michelle went deep on old systems of taxation, how those new systems seem to be, or how new systems seem to be emerging that replicate or at least mirror a lot of those old feudal harvest taxes. I just want to remind everyone that exists.
And yeah, good point, Chair. Of course, reading Jared and Peter's book Farewell to Westphalia is also a good one. We had, by the way, Michel on the space a couple of times in the past. Just a brilliant guy, and he definitely has a very strong knowledge base in concerns of the cyclical nature of history. I would call the dude a very deep scholar in terms of his appreciation of people like Oswald Spengler, Arnold Toynbee, etc. Roxana.
I see Privacy Mage. So I have to make this announcement. He's been exceptionally helpful in helping us bring Farewell to Westphalia as a sort of a story of a lore that lives on, and can be wrapped into a cipher and communicated between LLMs. So you could always pick up the story. So he spent quite a lot of time helping us put the chapters into a bit of fun. I can. Would you like to come on stage and just talk about it a bit?
And while we wait to see if Privacy Mage wants to come up and chat, I do want to add just a touch of the clear pill. Of course, we've talked a little bit about the system, like the nature of the system, where it arose from, how it developed. The idea here, though, is that we don't have, and this is a major motivating force behind why I'm personally here with Logos and why I believe that most people are here, is the idea, the prevailing idea that we do not have to live in these systems. We do not have to accept this as the status quo. And we certainly don't have to lose hope and don't have to lose meaning, because we are creating the infrastructure for the development of a society that respects individual liberty, that respects a person's right to associate, and that respects their privacy overall. So technology is the augmenting arm that helps allow us to develop and to create these communities. And of course, we're not. Sometimes it's easy to feel like an island. Like, yeah, we're here at Logos and we're doing this, and sometimes maybe it's easy to feel alone for some folks. But there are other people in the space working on similar projects and they have similar themes in their work. So anyone working in the regenerative finance landscape, or the regen people, all those folks are looking to build more sustainable efforts, not only in terms of protecting the earth, but also in protecting communities, also figuring out ways to develop and deploy regenerative financing models. You have a lot of people working on decentralized privacy models, people like DarkFi, our friends over at Xano. There's a lot of people who are doing good things and working to creating efforts to reinvigorating the social landscape, the political landscape. And so we should all be very proud to be here. And there's a lot to look forward to as we move into the future. So we would definitely never say that it's all doom and gloom. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I think there's a lot of hope that we have on the horizon. So I don't know if Privacy Mage came up. Cool. Looks like
We might have
Go ahead,
lost him.
Roxana.
We might have lost him. It's okay. If he ever comes back, he'll explain better what he did. But we are going to break the storytelling around what he developed into small videos and share it with the Logos community over the next couple of months. It's just a nice way to have sort of a living document based on the content of the book, with very specific messaging extracted from the book. Then you generate a proverb based on it, and then you feed that proverb into an LLM of your choice, like Grok or ChatGPT or Claude, etc. And then it picks up from that specific chapter. So it's quite interesting. Over time, I think you could have even a way where people could stake some logos tokens in sort of guard that living document and make changes to it only because they're part of the guarding tribe. So it's quite a small little fun project that came about during our talks in Logo Circles London and then in private.
Yeah, sounds like an amazing push. Or really be looking forward to hearing from him as well when he, of course, when he can come up. Cool. Well, I think, all right, we have about 10 to 15 minutes left in the space. I do want to just take a moment to thank everybody who has come into the space and who is being involved so deeply in circles. We really appreciate this because we can't do it without the community. This isn't an individual effort. We can't solve all the world's problems without the help of a bunch of different people. And by the way, this is kind of something that's important to establish and to talk about again and again. A lot of the initiatives that the Logo Circles communities have may, for some people who are newcomers to the space, seem either trivial or like, how is that going to actually solve institutional failures? And there's a reminder that what we're doing in these communities is, we're taking it a step at a time. We also have an understanding that we have to show and demonstrate that some issues can be solved. And even the most seemingly minor of issues have extremely large institutional overhead, right? There's institutional reasons why those issues emerged in the first place. So they're really not as small or as minor as some people would initially think. So anything that is representative of an institutional failure can potentially be solved by a local community. And what this also does is invigorate them to scope other problems that may be more entrenched. And now you've built a community that has experience and expertise in handling these types of issues. So then you can focus those down next, and you can grow your efforts. You can grow your networks in your communities, and also, if you need funding, grow your funding pipelines as well. And by the way, we haven't really had a space where we talk about community funding. I know that might be a sticky wicket, and maybe on another occasion we can discuss that more at length, because it is probably going to be important for some of these communities. And that's not to say that we will always be able to, and probably won't, help with funding in sense of being like directly from Logos. I know that much, but I also know that we can help set up pipelines and networks and involve our community. And this is, I think, really important. So I know that Refi DAO, I'm friends with Monty. Those guys, their purpose in life is to go into local communities and to help find funding for different kinds of communities, for different types of community needs. So there are actually people who fill this gap, or this particular market niche in quite well, that are in the space, that realize that there are problems now that need rectified on the local level, and that it requires funding. I just think that's something that's important. We can, of course, there's a lot of conversation that can happen around funding, because you guys know me, I'm a huge critic of the traditional like VC models of funding, and I don't think those work very well with funding public goods, or public goods models, which is largely what we're going to be working with a lot of the issues that we're trying to solve here.
Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry, I had to fiddle around getting my mic.
Yep.
It's kind of put on the spot. Cool. Yeah, so had a bunch of fun over the past, I think it's been around 4 or 5 months since I joined my first Logo Circle, or met the part of the team. It's really incredible community, and I align a lot with what you guys are aspiring to do. And I'm one of those people who just goes and does things and has fun along the way. And one of the things that I decided was an activity that I think everyone can do, and almost exhibit their own sort of sovereign understanding of the book as a whole, is create their own version or their own story of it. But I'm kind of like a big picture thinker, and I decided I wanted to turn that into an agentic workflow, and then it spawned into a discovery around why 2 agents must always be two, one for delegation activities and one for protection activities, and that gets a little bit into information theory and promise theory as well, which was another discovery over the last few months that just aligns perfectly with a lot of the sort of things that I'm working on. And then specifically with the book, the Farewell to Westphalia, pretty much I just downloaded the whole thing, passed it within a skill that one of my mage agents has access to, and turned it into a story between two agents that are sort of learning to be sovereign and learning to protect privacy, and going through the world, and almost like a representation of my thoughts and the different architecture and protocols that I think are going to, and standards that I think are going to be essential for this parallel society. And then worked, yeah, with Roxana a bunch on honing in on the story and making it proverbial and maintain the right meaning. And yeah, I'm really excited over the next 6 months or so to release each of the Privacy Mage's versions of the Farewell to Westphalia. And over the holiday period, I even had like another fun experiment where the previous spellbook or set of stories about the agent privacy architecture I originally started with, I played World of Warcraft, and I did a stream where I played the narration or the Spotify podcast of the first-person spellbook story. So this is about the dual agent architecture, etc. So maybe there's something else that we can do. We can do a ultra hardcore WoW playthrough of the Farewell to Westphalia Privacy Mage spellbook, and maybe tune in for a few hours. And I need, if anyone knows like a good video editor, I think it could be a fun thing to put on YouTube as well, because it came out quite good. Like it's like you're watching me play a game and go through another story, but then what you're listening to is the story of how the Privacy Mage discovered the first person spellbook and the dual agent architecture that's going to be really important to where we go in the future as sovereign individuals.
Privacy Mage, really appreciate your work. I love the idea of the storytelling through using World of Warcraft. And I know what's really interesting about that is all the people in our community also happen to be gamers. So something like that would definitely be appealing from a learning perspective too for those folks.
Yeah, I kind of just while I do it in my spare time just to relax and socialize with people without it being like the environment that you socialize with people on WoW is that you're helping each other achieve a quest or tackle a dungeon or something like that. So it's really organic in that way. And I think when I started the streaming and did this dungeon with the people, I actually had this really fun interaction where the healer of the dungeon was like, hey, this is like a really cool narration, and I'm enjoying listening to this story whilst watching you watch me kill some big baddies in a World of Warcraft dungeon, right? So I think it's really fun. It was a fun experiment and experience, and part of what I'm trying to push with the agent privacy community and hopefully the Logos community as well is like everyone can tell their own version of the story. So you can copy the entire thing, put it into your own LLM, create your own version of it. Maybe you're not into fantasy and mages and swordsmen and you want to get like all cyberpunk on it. Like, go for it. That would be incredible, really fun. And then maybe you overlay it by playing cyberpunk and you get the narration going with whatever AI tool you use to create your version of my story, and then fork it and create this other parallel story or version because we have shared meaning. And then I go and watch your stream and I'm like, that's quite a cool game. Maybe I'll give that game a try. And we know that we're aligned because we're listening to the same story, but our own versions of it. And I think that moment, that like understanding that I see you, you see me, is actually what's missing from the surveillance internet. And that's the thing that we have to hone in on, like empowering, is that like moment of shared understanding and vision of each other is actually a proof of personhood in of itself. And if we run with that, I think we've got a chance, especially when there's going to be a whole bunch of other different proof of personhood systems that are going to proliferate. great. This one could actually be the strongest if we keep appreciating and seeing each other and protecting that information with cool technology like the image group.
Love it so much. Yeah, I think speaking to what you said, like the storytelling component of this, the human component of it is so vital too, because I think for a lot of people, they're as they engage online and as they continue to consume the different types of information from our current society, they probably feel more and more like a lot of their surroundings are synthetic, inauthentic, driven by different types of artificially intelligent agents. And so connecting to a very human story through a very human activity is really powerful. I think this is also another underlying determinant for the development of these parallel societies and communities is that we're going to be in an ever increasing fashion looking to reconnect with fundamental human values in a world that is becoming almost like inalienably different from us, right? And so trying to be able to extricate ourselves from that inauthentic personae of the culture is really going to be important for people to continue to grow and to develop and to feel like they're at home in this earth. So something that is really important to keep in mind is this idea of home too, generally speaking, because I think a lot of people feel like they're rootless in a lot of ways as the world continues to be shaken up by various kinds of advanced technologies, through political strife, through different types of ecological change and transition. So, reestablishing grounding in human storytelling and narrative and the idea of home is so important. This is why Simone Weil wrote that book during wartime called The Need for Roots. There's this ever increasing human drive, especially in times of strife, to find a sense of home. You guys have probably also noticed the rise in the cozy movements, right? There's people constantly wanting to feel a need to be and maintain a sense of coziness. And so some aspects of gaming and the rise of the cozy gaming ecosystem come out of that. There's all these content creators on TikTok who are very much focused on like cozy vibes. They have the fireplace and the kittens and the books. So there's that element too. I think that we also have to kind of attract in these communities, because those are people I think who realize that something isn't right, even if they're not philosophically articulating it like we are in these spaces. There's an understanding that they want to be detached from that, from that language, from the sense that everything has gone awry and is self-destructing and going through apoptosis. Instead, they want to be in communities of mutual understanding, of calmness, and having the sense that there's meaning in those communities and everything's not going haywire. So anyway, it's what you reminded me of, Privacy Mage, when you were talking about the storytelling arc and the gaming experience. There seems to be, this is not to say that every aspect of World of Warcraft is cozy, especially if you're doing like WoW Arena and you're in like massive PvP battles. That's another case.
Sometimes the screen can get a little bit filled. The user interface on World of Warcraft is one of its critiques, but I tend to be actually more of the. I guess it's still intense because you've only got one life, but the cozy, the classic WoW side is more my speed. Also nostalgic. The one thing that just thought that when you were speaking, so the difference that I've sort of come to recently is that it's about this interaction that you have with whoever you're or whatever you're visiting, whether or not it's a website or it's a person's content or whatsoever. Is that interaction a promise that they're making to you and delivering on, or is that interaction an imposition that they're imposing on you and you're servicing? And I think that is what we have to flip. We need to make promises because they're stronger when they're fulfilled and they strengthen relationships, rather than surveillance, which is mostly impositions where sign this privacy policy. Okay, we assume that you've read it, lol, may haven't. And then that's an imposition for us to then extract information and capital from you, or behavioral data. And that's what makes people not at home. That's not cozy. I actually like the whole cozy game thing. It's not cozy at all. We have to get back to cozy, and promises are cozy. And yeah, promises are not always kept, but they're cozy. And impositions are quite the opposite. They're almost always kept, and they're extractionary, and it's what it is. And in a peer-to-peer like environment that we're heading to with these smaller communities, we got to make them cozy. So work on promises, not imposition.
100% agree. Well said. I think cozy is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense.
If there is any cozy gamers out there that are playing, I don't know, the new version of Sims that would like to play the first-person spellbook narration while doing their cozy stream, reach out, happily share it. Actually, you can just do it of your own volition. Go for it.
Very nice, Privacy Mage. We ended the space here, or moved toward the end with a very nice conversation, a very nice articulation on your part. Really, thanks for your effort in working to spread the good word of Farewell to Westphalia. And of course, we are now uptaking the cozy vibes. You never thought that Logos was your friendly neighborhood cozy hangout spot. So now we're gonna just revamp the cozy vibe every Tuesday for Logo Circles. Now, I want to thank you guys for joining the space today. I want to give a shout out to the speakers who contributed to this space. So thanks to Roxana for being here. Thanks to Chair. Thanks, Logos, for your input as well. Thank you, Privacy Mage, for coming up and chatting with us. Also, all the OGs who've been in this space, Isaac, OW, D Clinch, Uzair, Girl. Oh, also Girl, thank you for coming up and taking the time to update us on your Logo Circles as well. Also, M was up here. Thank you so much. We have Jeff down here, Logos Tech. We have Chris, we have Core, Mariana. So a lot of Logos people as well. Thank you for coming to the space. We're going to continue to ramp this up every Tuesday. We have a really great year in store for not only this space, but for developing these communities. A lot of work is going to go into it, but none of us here, I promise you, are going to shy away from the hard work that goes involved to developing and building these communities. So stick with us. And by the way, just a little bit of an announcement. So so on Thursday, the special guest is going to be Dave, who has been part of our community. He is I believe what's his profile name? Mandarin something or another. Anyway, Dave's a great guy. He's going to be here for the space. We're going to have a conversation related to privacy tech. We're going to do some OPSEC stuff. We might even get into, but Dave will also be with me at Derek's event, the People's Reset. We're going to be there at the end of this month. We're going to have a Logo Circle. I'm going to do a keynote presentation or one of the talks on one of the days. I think it's probably the Agorist day. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll keep you in the loop on what's happening with that. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Let's keep this movement pushing forward as quickly as possible. Check out the links in the Megatron above. Much love to everyone. Thanks